High in the Dangrek Mountains, where the land rises like a natural wall between Cambodia and Thailand, lies a temple that few outside the region have ever heard of. Its name is Prasat Ta Moan Thom, the Great Temple of Grandfather Chicken. The name may sound humble, even playful, but the story it tells is anything but. This temple is not as famous as Angkor Wat, nor is photographed as Bayon. Yet its stones whisper of empires and armies, of pilgrims and kings, of forgotten roads and modern disputes. It is a temple that has stood at the very edge of civilizations, watching centuries of history unfold. Prasat Ta Moan Thom is more than a ruin. It is a witness. It has seen the Khmer Empire at its height, when Angkor ruled over vast lands. It has seen the Cham invasions, the decline of Angkor, the arrival of colonial powers, and the scars of modern war. Today, it stands at the border of Cambodia and Thailand, claimed by both, a symbol of shared heritage and contested history. To walk through its corridors is to step into a story that spans 1,000 years. This is the entire history of Prasat Ta Moan Thom, a temple at the edge of empires.
Geography is destiny, and nowhere is this clearer than at Prasat Ta Moan Thom. The temple sits atop the Dangrek Mountains, a rugged escarpment that stretches for hundreds of kilometers. To the north lies the Korat Plateau of Thailand. To the south, the fertile plains of Cambodia. For centuries, this mountain pass was a gateway. Armies marched through it. Traders carried goods. Pilgrims journeyed to Angkor. Imagine it as the medieval equivalent of a highway interchange, a place where roads converged, where travelers paused, where power was asserted. The temple's unusual southward orientation, facing Cambodia rather than the traditional east, was no accident. It was built to greet those climbing the pass, to bless them as they entered Khmer lands, and to remind them of the empire's reach. From its walls, one could see far into the plains below, a commanding view that was both spiritual and strategic. Prasat Ta Moan Thom was not just a temple, it was a sentinel, a stone guardian watching over the empire's frontier.
In the 11th century, the Khmer Empire was at its zenith. From Angkor, kings ruled over lands stretching from the South China Sea to the borders of Burma. Their power was expressed not only in armies, but in stone. Temples rose across the empire, not just in the capital, but in distant provinces, binding them to Angkor. Prasat Ta Moan Thom was one such outpost. It was a frontier temple, a marker of Khmer presence in the Dangrek Mountains. To the traveler, it was a place of prayer. To the soldier, it was a fortress. To the king, it was a symbol, proof that his authority extended even to the edges of the empire. The Khmer Empire was a civilization of builders. Angkor Wat dazzled with its scale, Bayon astonished with its faces, but Ta Moan Thom impressed with its position, perched on the edge of a cliff, a reminder that the empire's reach was as vast as the mountains themselves.
Prasat Ta Moan Thom was likely built during the reign of Udayadityavarman II, a king who ruled from 1050 to 1066. His reign was marked by construction, temples, highways, hospitals. He understood that empire was not only about conquest, but about connection. Ta Moan Thom was part of this vision. It stood on the great highway linking Angkor to Phimai, a vital artery of the empire. Along this route, rest houses and temples served travelers. Ta Moan Thom was both shrine and shelter, a place where pilgrims could pray, soldiers could rest, and traders could pause before continuing their journey. Imagine the scene, a caravan of ox carts creaking up the pass, soldiers marching in formation, monks chanting prayers. At the summit, the temple awaited, its sanctuary glowing in the sun, its priests offering blessings. For the weary traveler, it was both a spiritual refuge and a reminder of the king's power.
The temple itself is modest compared to Angkor's giants, but its design is no less meaningful. Built of laterite and sandstone, it follows the classic Khmer style, a central sanctuary surrounded by gopuras, gateway towers, and enclosed by walls. Yet it is unique. Unlike most Khmer temples, which face east, Ta Moan Thom faces south. This orientation was deliberate, greeting travelers from Cambodia and offering defenders a clear view of the plains below. Walking through its corridors today, you feel the weight of time. The stones are warm under the sun, the jungle presses close, and the silence is broken only by the wind. The carvings are weathered, the walls scarred by centuries of conflict, yet the temple endures. It is not grandeur that defines Ta Moan Thom, but resilience. It has stood for nearly 1,000 years, a sentinel of stone on the edge of empires. At the core of Prasat Ta Moan Thom lies its sacred heart, the central sanctuary. In its earliest days, this chamber housed a linga, the symbolic representation of Shiva. Pilgrims climbing the Dangrek Pass would pause here, bowing before the god of destruction and renewal, seeking blessings for their journey. The temple's southward orientation meant that worshippers entered facing Cambodia's plains, as if the god himself was watching over the empire. Priests tended the shrine, offering flowers, incense, and chants that echoed through the stone corridors. Over time, as Buddhism spread through the Khmer Empire, the temple's identity shifted. The linga gave way to Buddha images, and the chants of Brahmin priests mingled with the prayers of monks. This blending of traditions was not unusual in Angkor's world. Temples were living spaces, evolving with the faith of the people. Today, the sanctuary is empty. The sacred objects are gone, looted, or lost. Yet when you stand inside, the silence feels charged, as if the stones themselves remember centuries of devotion. Prasat Ta Moan Thom was not alone. It was part of a triad of temples: Ta Moan Thom, the Great Temple, Ta Moan Toch, the smaller hospital chapel, and Prasat Ta Moan, the rest house chapel. Together, they formed a complex that served both spiritual and practical needs. Ta Moan Toch was a place of healing. Inscriptions across the empire describe such hospital chapels, where herbs were prepared, prayers recited, and the sick tended. Ta Moan, the rest house chapel, was one of many built along the highways, offering shelter to weary travelers. Imagine the scene: a caravan of merchants arriving at dusk, oxen unyoked, fires lit, prayers offered at the shrine before sleep. Soldiers resting after a long march, their armor stacked beside them. Monks chanting sutras, their voices rising into the night. The Ta Moan complex was not just stone, it was life, a crossroads of faith, commerce, and community. The temple's importance cannot be understood without the highway it served. The Khmer Empire built one of the most advanced road networks of the medieval world. From Angkor, roads stretched north to Phimai, east to Champa, west to Lopburi. Along these routes, temples, rest houses, and hospitals formed a chain of civilization. Prasat Ta Moan Thom was a vital link on the Angkor-Phimai road. This was not just a path for pilgrims, it was a lifeline for armies, a channel for trade,
a thread binding the empire together. Think of it as the interstate system of its time, but instead of gas stations and motels, there were shrines and chapels. Instead of road signs, there were carvings of gods. Instead of toll booths, there were priests offering blessings. The highway was empire made visible, and Ta Moan Thom was one of its milestones.
What was life like around Ta Moan Thom? Archaeology gives us clues. Pottery shards suggest markets. Foundations hint at wooden houses long vanished. Inscriptions speak of pilgrims, soldiers, and healers. Picture a day in the 12th century. Dawn breaks, and smoke rises from cooking fires. Merchants unload goods, rice, salt, cloth, spices. Soldiers sharpen weapons, preparing for patrol. Monks sweep temple courtyards, their saffron robes bright against the stone. Children chase each other through the grass, their laughter echoing off the walls. The temple was not isolated. It was alive. It was a community, a meeting point, a place where the empire's great highway touched ordinary lives. And though centuries have passed, if you walk the ruins today, you can almost hear those echoes, the footsteps, the chants, the laughter, carried on the wind.
But no empire lasts forever. By the 14th and 15th centuries, Angkor was in decline. Climate shifts disrupted the irrigation system. Enemies pressed in. The great highways fell silent. As Angkor weakened, so too did Ta Moan Thom. The caravans stopped coming. The soldiers marched elsewhere. The pilgrims no longer climbed the pass. The jungle crept back, vines twisting through stone, roots cracking walls. For centuries, the temple lay forgotten, its carvings faded, its sanctuaries empty. Only the mountains remembered, holding the ruins in their silent embrace. The decline of Angkor was not just the fall of a city, it was the fading of a world, and Ta Moan Thom was one of its casualties.
The story of Ta Moan Thom did not end with Angkor. In the 20th century, colonial powers redrew the map of Southeast Asia. French surveyors mapped Cambodia. Thai officials mapped Siam, but their lines were vague, their surveys incomplete. As a result, temples like Ta Moan Thom became contested ground. Was it Cambodian? Was it Thai? Both nations claimed it, each citing maps and treaties. The temple, once a place of prayer, became a pawn in geopolitics. Soldiers camped near its walls. Flags were raised and lowered. Barbed wire scarred the landscape. It is a reminder that history is not only about the past, it is also about how we choose to interpret it today.
The late 20th century brought darker times. During the 1980s and 90s, the Khmer Rouge controlled the Dangrek Mountains. Ta Moan Thom, like many temples, was looted. Sculptures were stolen, sometimes blasted out with dynamite. Priceless heritage vanished into the black market. The temple became a battlefield. Mines were laid. Soldiers fought among the ruins. The sanctuaries that once echoed with prayers now echoed with gunfire. For Cambodians, this was not just the loss of stone. It was the loss of memory, of identity, of history itself. The scars of that era are still visible in the missing carvings, in the shattered walls, in the silence that lingers.
In the 2000s, tensions flared again. Cambodia and Thailand both stationed troops near the temple. Skirmishes erupted. Civilians fled nearby villages. Once more, Ta Moan Thom was caught between nations. News cameras captured soldiers crouching behind ancient walls, rifles resting on thousand-year-old stones. Smoke rose from clashes. The temple, built as a sanctuary, became a front line. For many, this was a bitter irony. A place meant to unite through faith was dividing through politics. Yet even amid conflict, the temple endured, its stones indifferent to human quarrels.
Today, Ta Moan Thom is slowly being rediscovered. Archaeologists study its stones, tracing inscriptions, mapping foundations. Tourists, when allowed, walk its corridors, marveling at its position on the cliff. But access remains restricted. Soldiers still guard the site. The border dispute is unresolved. Preservation is difficult in such contested ground. Yet the temple stands. Its walls may be scarred, its carvings weathered, but it endures. And in its endurance, it offers hope that heritage can survive politics, that memory can outlast conflict.
Prasat Ta Moan Thom is not the largest Khmer temple, nor the most ornate, but it is one of the most symbolic. It tells us that temples were not only places of worship, but also way stations of empire, part of a network that bound Angkor to its provinces. It reminds us that geography shapes history, that a mountain pass can become a corridor of faith and power. And it warns us that heritage is fragile, looted in war, scarred by politics, yet still standing. Today, as Cambodia and Thailand debate its ownership, perhaps the temple itself offers a lesson. Its stones do not care about borders. They speak instead of shared history, of a time when culture flowed freely across mountains and plains. Prasat Ta Moan Thom is a reminder that the past belongs to all of us, and that its preservation is our shared responsibility.